So we can start then with our first presenters. We've got the impacts of prostate cancer on the sex lives and relationships of MSM, presented by Ariel Hardy and Bernard Lee, sorry. So if you'd like to come up. Ariel completed her BA in psychology from the University of Vermont in 2013 and moved to Vancouver later that year to continue research in human sexuality. Bernard Lee, Dr. Lee completed his radiation oncology residency at the University of Ottawa, recently returned to Canada from New Zealand, and is currently working in Kelowna for the British Columbia Cancer Agency. Please welcome them.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our research for MSM with prostate cancer. But before I begin, I think I should talk about prostate, because not many people know where the prostate is. It's really a strange angle. I'll just take it off. So here's actually you'll be surprised. So here's the prostate, as you can see. Its main function is to secrete ejaculation about 30 to 40% of the volume. It is surrounded by some of the very important organs. The bladder is right above, which store urine, and the urine comes through the urethra out to the penis. Behind the prostate is the rectum, where bowel movement takes place and anal intercourse. What is not shown on this picture is that behind the prostate there are two neurovascular bundles, which is essential for erectile function. They're often injured during surgery. So prostate cancer is the most common cancer in Canada, more than 230,000 each year. And nobody knows really whether MSM get more prostate cancer or not. Let's assume every 20 men, one of them is gay, then over 1,200 each year will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. Because of PSA testing, in the past, the median age diagnosis for prostate cancer was about 70. Now he's go down to 65. And with more advance in surgery, radiation, hormone therapy, the 5-year survival rate, even for more advanced form of cancer, is still almost 100%. So which means people that diagnosed with prostate cancer will live after diagnosis, live after the treatment. So sexual function become more and more important. But as the audience here would know, MSM, what they do for sexual practice and the variety is very different from the straight population. Yes, most of the study were focused on the straight population. So there is a gap in knowledge there. And as a physician, many of my patients I ask routinely. I definitely have seen more than 20 men with prostate cancer. None of them ever tell me that they have sex with men. None. Because many people are not comfortable to talk about that even in a clinic setting. So as I alluded to, there are different forms of treatment for prostate cancer. You can have a surgery and you remove the prostate out. In the process, you may damage the nerve there. It can cause erectile dysfunction. It can cause urinary incontinence. Or you can give radiation from the outside, front and back, different angle, erectile dysfunction again, but this time a little bit more diarrhea, maybe some rectal bleeding. And then in some more advanced case, you need to use hormone together with radiation. In that case, again, it causes erectile dysfunction, some penile shortening, depression, weight gain, decreased muscle mass. Doesn't sound very appealing. I want to go back to the erectile dysfunction part because they're a little bit different, depends on the modality. With the surgery, because you injure the nerve right away, you have the erectile dysfunction right away. They may recover 5 to 10 years down the road. While for the radiation, it's more chronic vascular damage, and so the erectile dysfunction is more slow onset. Hormone therapy didn't really cause any anatomical changes, but it changed your psyche, it decreased your libido, and you have erectile function this way. So even though all of them has erectile function, they work differently. And if you unfortunately have to have all treatment, then you're being attacked in multiple places. There have been some study published by Dr. Dowsett, Hart, and Wassersug. So overall, they want to explore what happened in gay men with prostate cancer. They generally find that after the treatment, they have decreased frequency for sexual intercourse, and the severity depends on the different trial. It may be related to the age group or treatment that they use. Some of them have, if they already doing anal intercourse, they will go from more insertive to the receptive role. And for some people that never tried anal intercourse before, after the treatment, they may actually try receptive anal intercourse. And one overriding theme is that unlike the straight population, the ejaculation part actually seems to play a higher role for the MSM or the gay population.
Okay, so I'm going to try and juggle the microphone and the clicker and my notes all at the same time. Okay, so some of the literature on how prostate cancer might affect gay men, bisexual men, two-spirit men, men who have sex with men, is a bit mixed. So we, through this study, sought to better understand the impact that prostate cancer and its treatment might have on these men. So during this presentation, we will be using men who have sex with men, or MSM, as sort of the umbrella term for gay men, bisexual men, two-spirit, just for the sake of time. And because we really were focusing on the mechanism, or that action of engaging in sex with men. So, to do this, we recruited men through advertising. We advertised online. We had, go short, go slower. Oh, closer to the mic. Am I not loud enough? Can you guys hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. So, we recruited men online through Facebook. The Health Initiative for Men was also generous enough to host a webpage for us. We advertised on My Davy Village and other sites. We flyered throughout the community in local coffee shops. I don't know if anybody picked up a copy of Extra West in the past couple months, but we had an ad running there as well. And Dr. Lee and I performed in-person, oral presentations at local recreational clubs like English Bay Swim Club, the Tennis Association, Out in Harmony, etc. And we did flyer in some local physicians' offices like Spectrum Health, British Columbia Cancer Agency, and Vancouver Prostate Center. When men participated in this study, we conducted 60-minute in-depth oral presentations. That's what I'm doing right now. Qualitative interviews, where we talked with them about their sexual practices, their sexual satisfaction, orgasmic function, and the role that relationships might have played in their life both before and after treatment. The interviews were transcribed verbatim, and they were coded by at least 2 members of the study team. We conducted a thematic analysis of the content through NVivo. So we ultimately recruited 13 men. They were on average about 65 years old. 9 of the men were what we considered partnered. We defined partnered as being in an ongoing, stable, romantic relationship. 4 men were unpartnered. The majority of men had surgery or a radical or robotic prostatectomy as their only treatment modality. 2 men had radiation. 1 of them was brachytherapy or seed implantation, and the other had external beam radiation. 4 men did have to have multiple forms of treatment, though, and this sometimes was a combination of just surgery and radiation, and sometimes it also involved hormone therapy. And on average, men were about 6 years out of treatment. So as I said before, our interviews touched on topics of their sexual practices, sexual satisfaction, their orgasmic function, and the role of relationships before, during, and after treatment. So in order of frequency, both before and after treatment, we found that men engaged in masturbation, oral sex, and then anal sex. And we found that treatment-related depression, fatigue, and stress all impacted negatively one's sexual performance and their libido, or their sex drive. And we also found for there to be a diminished frequency of partnered sex after treatment, which sometimes actually did lead to the complete cessation or stopping of certain sexual activities. And as Dr. Lee mentioned, the literature shows that some men actually adopt anal sex and take on this role as perhaps being anal receptive after treatment. We did see this in our men as well. Some men flipped from being a top to being a bottom exclusively, and some men actually took up anal sex totally and completely after treatment and became anal receptive. However, in nearly all cases, we saw an increased reliance on masturbation in these men. I want to share with you guys some quotes throughout this presentation from the men who participated in the study, and this one is quite, this man had to pretty drastically change his sexual repertoire. He said, I tried both, and I preferred the top, but now I'm a bottom. I have to be. And then this next quote shows, again, a change in sexual repertoire, a little bit of flexibility, and the cessation of some sexual acts. He says, if you can't do one thing, then there's always something else you can do. I mean, just oral sex and mutual masturbation, perhaps hugging, touching. This is a 71-year-old man. Then this next man really reflected on the complexities of understanding what was going on to him after treatment. It's long, so I think I need to actually rotate for this. I'm not 25 and I can't run a marathon, so I don't know if what I'm experiencing is all due to the prostatectomy and post-prostate cancer, or whether it's more due to my age and the fact that I'm 65. What does one expect as a sex life when you're in your 60s and getting into your late 60s? There isn't a lot of discussion of that in society in general, whether it's straight or gay society. There seems to be a perception that you're no longer engaged in sexual activities once you reach a certain age without defining that age. So I haven't hung up my skates yet, but they're not as sharp as they used to be. It's pretty great. So, in terms of their levels of sexual satisfaction, we found that many men showed an acceptance of their new situation after prostate cancer treatment, and we think that this could largely be due to the fact that erectile dysfunction was common before treatment. A lot of men, they just kind of said, you know, I'm getting older, things were kind of slowing down anyway, I'm about as satisfied as I could be. However, for men that were suffering from urinary incontinence or had erectile dysfunction that was directly due to treatment, we did see a marked decrease in their sexual satisfaction after treatment. One man said, being incontinent is very, very disruptive because it's very hard to feel sexual when you're squirting urine all over the place, which I think is totally understandable. And then another man said, I mean, with some extra Levitra, anal sex is possible, but I just don't have the same sort of satisfaction out of it. And I don't know if it's maybe something more psychological to me because I'm feeling that I do need the extra boost in order to do that. And maybe in that aspect, my self-confidence is somewhat diminished as a result of the need to take the Levitra. So even though this man was being proactive and trying to continue engaging in his sexual practices, he needed help, and that that need for Levitra, or some men that were taking other medications, it impacted their sexual confidence. But as I said before, we also saw some acceptance. I would say I'm as satisfied to the point of where I am now. If I was 35, I certainly wouldn't be satisfied, but then I'd be taking different steps to deal with it. But in my 60s, I'm not as interested in a lot of exterior contact as I was when I was younger. Now, this definitely isn't the case for all men, but it was his experience. And in terms of orgasms, they seem to remain pleasurable after treatment, and a lot of men actually said that they were pleasantly surprised that they were still able to have an orgasm without having an erection. A lot of men didn't seem to know that going into it, that you can have an orgasm with a flaccid penis. But for some men, the attainment of orgasm became quite labored, to the point where one man said that he actually could no longer have an orgasm in a partnered setting. Many men, though, commented on having altered sensations, either with penile stimulation or during the orgasm itself, and having some heightened stimulation throughout the body. But many men, I'd say almost all men in this study, said that they felt like their orgasm was incomplete, or that it was slightly less fulfilling than before treatment because of the lack of ejaculate. And one man actually was quite angry about no longer being able to ejaculate, and he said, "It pisses me off because I would like to ejaculate. I find the orgasm when you've ejaculated, the actual semen coming up, it's just more complete than when you have the dry ejaculation. It's longer and it's more relaxed, I find, than with the dry ejaculation. It feels like there's still more to come, like I haven't quite reached my full ejaculation." But not everybody experienced so much of a change, and although they did note that they no longer had ejaculation, it didn't seem to be so impactful. It still feels like an orgasm, you know, it's sometimes right down to your toes. I mean, not every orgasm is equal either, before or after. I don't detect any significant differences. It's just the fact that the ejaculate's not there. But as I mentioned before, some men experienced slightly different sensations after treatment. It's much more radiating, and it's a body experience than any penile ejaculation experience. And I'm not one who has ultrasensitive nipples, but I have more sensitivity now than I did before, which is kind of interesting. So you can see we have quite a range of experiences of these men. And so we found that being partnered, which again was being in an ongoing romantic relationship, seemed to be beneficial for a lot of these men. They really highlighted the importance of having partner support throughout treatment, having a sexual partner that understood how they were trying to navigate through some of the sexual side effects that they were experiencing. Although there also was a lot of tension or anxiety when their partner would approach them for sex because they felt that they might not be able to please them like they did before treatment. But we did notice that there were some shifts in these guys' sexual approaches, that they would then, instead of going into it, I don't want to say more of it as an equal situation, but they would try and get pleasure out of pleasing their partner more after treatment. And several unpartnered men reported feeling embarrassed about the side effects that they were experiencing. Sometimes they said that it got to the point where they were no longer going out and trying to meet men. They didn't know how they were going to deal with that situation if it came up, or it took a lot of effort for them to kind of get back into the swing of things. Sometimes these men said that they would even tell little white lies to kind of give an excuse for why they don't have an erection. They would say, oh, this has never happened to me before, or I don't know why there's no ejaculate. Sometimes men, though, they did disclose, you know, their prostate cancer history, even though there was a lot of reluctance, and they would share this with their partners, and they found that when they did, their partners were actually quite kind and understanding. One man said that his partner actually started to talk about his own experience with colorectal cancer. So it's okay to talk about things with partners. And regardless of whether or not these men shared their experience, though, like I said before, we did see an altered sexual approach. And so this next quote shows a little bit of that hesitation towards getting back into the swing of things. Having a casual encounter, you have to kind of meet somebody quite special, or else the circumstances have to go perfectly, because by the time you've talked to them about your medical situation, a lot of people are going, well, I don't know. And if it got to a point where it came to be that, you know, something happened, something was happening, I'd just walk away and leave. And so there was no time to explain. I found it just too embarrassing with the touch of, you know, when you have lost that ability of being sort of the man, that I just didn't want to talk about it to anybody or explain it to anybody, and I didn't. So this is the last of my part, and I didn't want to leave it on a sad note. So I have one quote in here that I really liked about a man who had a really supportive partner. He said, "And fortunately, I have this amazing partner where sex can be secondary and it's not a game changer in our relationship."
So as Ariel have discussed, that men after prostate cancer for MSM, there's a definite decrease in the frequency that they engage in sex. And especially for the one with urinary incontinence and erectile dysfunction, if they don't have erectile dysfunction before but have treatment-induced erectile function, the distress is much greater. And for unpartnered men, it's very hard for them to have the courage to overcome the fear to go seek out a new partner. But I think gay men, MSM, are more adaptable. They have a wider sexual practice. For those who are willing to explore, they usually find ways, to their surprise, to be intimate with other men. So as a physician, when I see a patient, assume that they're straight, my treatment recommendation is often hinged on whether they want urinary side effect or they want bowel side effect. But I think for gay men, there is more layer than that. And in my future research, I'm hoping to see whether for gay men with certain preference in their sexual activity, assuming the cure rate is the same depending on the treatment but different profile, can they actually use sex as a determining factor to pick what treatment they want. Instead of just bowel movement or urinary incontinence, there may be others they can think about. I just want to thank the following organization for their generous time and funding for our research to make it possible. Thank you very much.